Welcome to Introduction to Unix. I am Professor Navarro. To learn about Linux, we need to do Linux. To do Linux, we need to learn how to log in to Linux. Upon logging in, we can discover the advantages of a textual interface, learn to correct typing mistakes, stop errant processes, repeat and edit previous commands. But what if we forget and we don't have access to the immutable search engine Google? We will rely on man and info pages to display information about utilities. --help will also provide an option to display useful information. By now, you likely have access to a terminal emulator and a VPN client if you are remote. Working on campus, a virtual private network or VPN client is not required. But if you're at home or possibly in a dorm, then the virtual private network extends the private network from the campus across the public network using one of many encrypted tunneling protocols. For remote users, open the VPN client on Windows at the bottom right in the system tray. Mac is at the top of the window. Log in with your Canvas credentials. On Mac, the keyboard combination Control-Option-Shift-T as in Tango will open a new terminal window. If you're on a Mac, type SSH space your username, the @ symbol, ember.hpc.lab. Your username is your Canvas ID. On Windows, open the PuTTY terminal. Go to your Start menu, type PuTTY, hit Enter. Under hostname, type user, that is your Canvas username, @ember.hpc.lab. Next, type Ember under the saved session, then click Save. Press Open. Why the error? Host does not exist because I forgot to log in to the VPN client. This is common. Remember, for remote access to the University Ember Lab, you will need to be authenticated in a VPN connection. Now click Open in PuTTY. Add a password when prompted. Press Enter. You will not see the cursor moving when typing a password. The terminal emulator is using Secure Shell protocol to communicate with the server. Secure Shell, known as SSH, is a cryptographic network protocol for operating over unsecured networks. It replaces the older unsecured Telnet, rlogin, and RSH protocols. SSH hides the user and password. It is not in plain text. SSH uses public key cryptography to authenticate remote computer, then uses password authentication. Public keys are stored in the home directory of the user. SSH supports password-based authentication, encrypted by automatically generated keys. It also supports tunneling, TCP port forwarding, and X.11, file transfer via SFTP and SCP using the client-server model. A man-in-the-middle attacker could imitate the legitimate server side and ask for the password and obtain it. But this is only possible if both sides have never authenticated before, as SSH remembers the previous keys of the client. Public keys support DSA and RSA key pairs with X.509 certificates. In 2017, WikiLeaks revealed the US CIA, can hack the SSH Protocol 2.0. Command line interface is the primary interface for Linux. Graphical interface of a server may not even be installed. We will not be using a graphical interface. Graphical user interfaces, or GUI, use a lot of resources. GUI makes security more complicated. Some commands are actually more flexible and powerful, as CLI. In this course, I will use the term command and utility interchangeably. In Linux, a command is actually the name of a utility or program that performs some kind of task. The format for a command is, command -option, which is actually optional, and then an argument. Example, ls, that is the name of a utility for listing the directory. Also, the command for it is ls, minus la, that is an option, space, /etc/passwd. The interactive environment that we work with in Linux is referred to as the shell. A system can have different types of shells. The SH shell is the original Unix Bourne shell written by Stephen Bourne. The KSH is referred to as the Korn shell and ran on Unix System 5 written by David Korn. The initial development was based on the Bourne shell source code. The common Linux shell and the one we will be using is called the bash shell, which is short for Born Again shell. The shell processes all commands and shell scripts. To check your shell, type echo, ECHO, space, $0 and press enter. Do not type a leading $. This is actually the prompt.
A Unix system is made up sort of 3 layers, if you like. The central layer, the kernel, is the thing that controls the resources of the machine. Then wrapped around that, at least conceptually, is something called the shell, which is the interface between most users and the kernel part. It sits there and waits for you to type commands at it, and then it interprets them. And then around that is sort of yet another layer are useful programs, things like editors and compilers for programming languages and document formatting programs, and programs that you write yourself.
Correcting mistakes is as simple with a command line interface. You can press the erase key, backspace to back over characters, delete a word with Control-W, delete a line with Control-U. You can suspend a running job with Control-Z, break out of a job with Control-C. Try this command. Sleep, space, 60, then enter. The shell counts to 60 and then will return the cursor. Before that happens, press Control-C. What happens? You can edit an existing command or replace it. Press the arrow keys up and down to scroll through past commands. Repeat the previous command with ! Control F moves your cursor forward. Control B moves the cursor backwards. Control A moves the cursor to the beginning of the line, while Control E moves it to the end of the line. In the lab environment, you'll be accessing the Ember server as a user. However, Unix Linux has a privileged user named root. It is referred to as the super user or administrator. To access root, you can log in as root if enabled, and you have privileges, or you can use su to change the user, or use sudo, followed by whatever command that you're trying to initiate as a root. Could you manage a Unix or Linux server without the World Wide Web and your favorite search engine right now? Of course you can. Unix and Linux have excellent documentation built into the operating system. The primary and original source of documentation are called the man pages. Man is short for manual. You can get more information about a command with the utility name man or man. Example, I would like to know more about man. Okay, type man space man, enter. While you're in the man pages, the space bar is used to display another screen of text. You can use page up, down, keys to navigate. H will display a list of commands. Q to quit, to escape out. The / is for searching for patterns. When I was young, I remember asking how to spell some word that was beyond my current vocabulary. Parents and teachers would say, "Look it up in the dictionary." I would muse that if I didn't know how to spell it, how am I going to find it in the dictionary? With Linux, we can use the apropos command followed by a search pattern or term to find documentation that mentions that term. For example, try apropos who. This returns all documentation that mentions WHO. To search for the keyword only, try what is, without a space, then space who. What is space who? What is the difference between apropos and man minus k? Minus k is an option. Try it. Apropos space zip, hit enter. Then try man space minus k space zip, enter. Is there a difference? It is actually the same command and will return the same results. Apropos is an alias of the man minus k. Man pages were created with the original Unix, but the GNU project in the 90s established the info utility to replace man. GNU is actually a recursive acronym for GNU's Not Unix, comprised of a collection of free software like Unix. The info command or utility is more comprehensive, yet written in an easier to understand format. You can use H or question mark to list info commands, space to scroll through, M followed by the name of a menu item to display, Q or Control C to quit. If we still need help with commands, try the --help after a command. --help provides a man type information. Use less if information runs off the screen. For instance, ls space --help, pipe space less, enter. Then you can use your arrow keys or spacebar to scroll through a page at a time. Again, press Q to quit. The bash help command also provides information, such as when we type help space help. Local documentation can be found at ls space /user /share /doc. It can also be found in user/share/doc/parted*/readme. If you're done with your SSH session, you can log off with a Control-D as in Delta, or simply type the word exit, E-X-I-T, then enter. If you plan on setting up your own Linux system, which can be done on a virtual machine, or even directly in Windows 10 via the Windows subsystem for Linux container, use minimal guidelines for setting up a user account password. Passwords should be at least 6 characters long, should not be a word in the dictionary, should not be a noun, should not be a username. You can use the pwgen utility to create a quasi-random password even. Thank you.